Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Digital Reset. I'm Michael Walker, I'm the editor of Digital Printer Magazine, and I'm pleased to be here to host what I think is going to be a very interesting discussion about how several printers have turned lockdown adversity into business advantage. I don't think any of us need reminding about how difficult this year has been and how differently it's turned out from what we were expecting when it started. New words like COVID, coronavirus, lockdown, and furlough have become part of our everyday conversations. And of course, the impact on businesses of all kinds has been huge. Commercial print has been hit hard. A number of companies reported a week from hell when the lockdown started in March, and businesses went from normal to effectively nothing in some cases. But this also gave time for printers to think about what else they could do, or to bring forward plans that had been on the to-do list for some time, but perhaps there'd never been a moment to think about them or implement them properly. We're going to speak this afternoon to a group of printers who tackled the lockdown in different ways, and we hope that by sharing their experiences and views, you'll hear some ideas that you can use yourselves. But before we introduce our panel of printers, I think it's only appropriate to recognise and thank our sponsors, as without their support, we wouldn't be here doing this now. They've taken some time to prepare short video messages about why they're supporting Digital Reset. So I'd like to play those to you now, and then we'll meet our panelists.
Hello, this is Terry Garvey from EFI. We're delighted to be sponsoring the Digital Reset event. Today, the UK population and many different companies are having to adapt to brand new market conditions. And in the future, I'm sure, when we look back, we will see the early 2020s as another milestone in the evolution of our own printing industry. The exciting new opportunities that digital printing offers will continue to reshape the products and services that you can deliver to your customers. And you will hear today how some companies have already adapted to these. At EFI, we're proud to be able to help you in this transformation and provide complete end-to-end integrated solutions, from creation and capture to workflow management to our own Fiery-driven digital presses for display graphics, packaging, and textiles, as well as cut sheet applications with our partners. So if you want to know more, we have the EFI team in the networking and exhibition areas ready to answer any of your questions. So don't be shy, come and say hi to the EFI guys.
Intelligent Finishing Systems is proud to be a leading supporter of Digital Reset. There has never been a more important time to review and reset your print business. Digital Reset enables us all to be in one place virtually for a couple of hours to hear some of the best business experiences in these challenging times. IFS will be on hand to answer your questions about print finishing automation. We look forward to seeing you at Digital Reset online.
Hi there, my name is John Vick from Premier Paper. I'm the Sales Director for Digital Media. We will miss being the supreme sponsor for this year's Digital Printer Awards. However, what an opportunity it presents for Digital Printer to create this amazing online event, Digital Reset, How to Thrive in Challenging Times. We can all share the positives that inevitably arise from this situation and enables us to present new practices and products our industry develops and can continue to thrive upon, whilst the NHS, health experts and researchers focus on getting us through this pandemic, whom we continue to thank on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
We're very pleased to be a sponsor of Digital Reset. As the world continues to evolve, so must the print industry. To stay relevant and drive business growth, today's leaders need to be creatively and confidently reimagining the possibilities of print within the wider ecosystem of communications. That's why we're identifying new, creative ways to work, with hardware, software, and services that redefine what print can be. We'll partner you to extend your reach, differentiate your business, and face the opportunities of the future. Because the future of print is fluorescent and metallic, connected and automated, integrated and personalized, so that you can capture each and every customer opportunity. The future of print lies beyond CMYK. Enjoy the panel discussion, and we look forward to welcoming you to Xerox in the virtual marketplace.
Okay, so thanks again to our sponsors, EFI, Xerox, Premier Paper and IFS. I should point out that they all have virtual exhibition stands here, which are open throughout this afternoon's event. And I think some of them will also be available during the one-to-one networking that opens after the panel discussion. So please drop by, take a look at what they're doing, have a chat with them, see how they might be able to help you. Now, let's meet our panelists. We also asked them to make short videos introducing themselves. And in these, they'll say who they are, what their businesses are, what they do or what they did during normal times, and briefly, how they responded to the impact of what is now 2 lockdowns in the UK. Here they are.
Hello, my name is Jared McElhinney. I'm from a company called Vinehall Displays. We are in business for the last 33 years, and predominantly we work in the conference, exhibition and event space, and have been delivering services throughout Ireland, the UK and Europe, delivering exhibition stands, conference backdrops, and event production, large scale mass participation to everything in between. So we have, as a family run business, with my mother and father who are still heavily involved. Also my wife is heavily involved. We've had 15 staff at the start of COVID, and we're happy to say we've still got 15 staff at the other end as well. So we've been lucky enough that we've been able to look at what the need was for people at the moment, and we were able to think of ways we could use all our skill sets and our great equipment and our world-class finishing capacity. So we pivoted and now are working from home equipment.
Hi, I'm Danny Neri. I'm the Managing Director of Mailing and Marketing Solutions, or MAMS as we're better known, based in Leeds. MAMS is a company with approximately 93 employees today, and we base ourselves largely in 2 sectors. One is in publications, be that just paper wrapped items that are going onto a supermarket shelf instead of going into polyethylene, giving the ecological result that companies want these days. The other side of the business is in direct mail, where again, we are using paper wrapping technology, digitally printed, to create the impression, if you like, of a one-to-one bespoke envelope that's going out to their customers. MAMS were in a reasonably strong position when the original COVID wave hit. Yes, we had to furlough some people. Originally, we sent 62% of staff home, but that very quickly recovered, largely due to the fact that we just quite fortunately happened to be working in the right sectors at the time. Publications, particularly those on subscription, suddenly became very popular with homeowners, people staying at home, should I say, when they're on furlough. And of course, there was direct mail, and much of the direct mail that we do happens to be for home retail shopping companies. So the packs that we're sending out are driving much of their activity onto the website for shopping. So all told, we managed to get everyone back into work by about the 1st of July. I think there were just 2 people outstanding after that. But all told, we did quite well.
Hello, my name is Mark Cotty. I'm the owner of BCA Group. We specialise in short-run digital print communications. We service a variety of sectors: finance, security, architects, outdoor events, construction and education, to name but a few. We're based in Enfield, which is in North London, and we are a 2-man business. The impact of COVID on our business was pretty devastating. At the particular time when it started, we weren't quite sure how long this was going to go on for. And after a while, we realised that we needed to do something about it. And so what we started to do was to look in other areas for how we could diversify into other technologies.
I'm Gary Peeling, CEO of Precision Proco Group. Precision Proco Group is a group of industry-leading print companies that place technology at the forefront of what we do. Our operating companies are Precision Proco, which supplies large blue chip companies like American Express with their marketing print requirements. Prime, which is where we supply B2B2C products for e-commerce consumer print brands that might be providing photo or social stationery products online. We have Where the Trade Buys, which is an upload and print website. And finally, Climb, which provides the technology that drives all of the above. So we work with a range of customers, from large corporates at Precision Proco through to resellers on Where the Trade Buys, and finally through a trade relationship all the way to the consumer. During the COVID crisis, we saw a 70 to 80% reduction in our B2B business. Conversely, on the flip side of that, our B2B2C business, so products, print products that are going to consumer, actually rose 30 to 40%.
Hello, my name is Ian Clasper. I'm Managing Director of Northern Flags up in Leeds. We are also known as Faber Expercise because we're part of a European network of printers that are in Poland, the Netherlands, in Germany, and also in Thailand. If we look at our client base, because we've come out of a fabric background, there's no surprise really that we're particularly strong in sport, in events, in exhibitions and retail. We have historically been seasonal, so one would have expected the spring and the summer to be our busiest time and the dye sub printers working their socks off. Unfortunately, COVID has kind of inverted the kind of printing that we've been doing because the demand for sport and events and exhibitions has all but disappeared. And so what we've been doing is primarily UV work, which has been linked primarily around the need for COVID safety stuff.
I'm Nicole Spencer. I'm Managing Director of RMC Digital Print. RMC Digital Print is based in Hull. We're a trade-only wide format printer. So by trade only, we mean we work with signage companies, exhibition and event companies, or we did work with signage companies, exhibition and event companies. And we also do a bit of set and stage work, where we've about 20 people who work here, and our turnover is usually somewhere between £2.5 to £3 million. In March, when just prior to lockdown, we were really busy. It's our busiest March we've ever had. And then when there was rumours of the lockdown, everything just fell off a cliff. When we came back in June, the first thing I decided to do was to buy a new printer. The other directors weren't so on board with it, but once we looked at the figures and we could see what we could do, we could essentially replace two machines with one, but we're getting a faster, better machine.
So, 6 printers covering a range of markets, territories and specialities, and from about the smallest company you can be to one of the largest, but all with ideas to share based on their experience during lockdown. You will have almost certainly noticed that some of the cuts in the videos were quite abrupt, and the speakers were obviously about to go on to say something more. Rather than let them give it all away in the videos, I thought it would be better to explore some of the additional comments, the bits that you haven't yet heard, as a way of kicking off the panel discussion. Do remember that you can put forward your own questions via the box on the right of the screen at any time, and we will aim to include as many of those as we can. Going in the order that we saw the panelist videos just now, I'd like to start with Jerry from Vinehall Displays in Dublin. Jerry, I love your story. If switching from making exhibition stands and displays to flat pack furniture isn't an example of thinking outside the box, I don't know what is. Can you tell us a bit more, please, about how that idea came about, what you had to do to make it happen, and where it's taken you as a business?
Yeah, so very similar to most of the people here. We started off with the Friday of the announcement in Ireland, especially about the lockdown. It was coming up to St. Patrick's Day. So we're predominantly a conference, exhibition and event production company. So we would normally, coming up to St. Patrick's Day, we had outdoor activities, festivals going on for the quite large production going on in Merrion Square in Dublin for St. Patrick's Day, around for brands, and also for and also getting other things ready. Just that Friday, we had a lot of things happening, and then bang, the phone just hard to the hopping. Everybody was emailing, phone, and everything was cancelled. Everything from that day for the next 3-4 months, just everything was gone. And we had some major productions in the works. We were working on the Euro finals in Dublin. We had quite a lot of other major event production things happening. So literally all of that happening all at the same time, but everyone's bombarded. We just reached out to all the customers, said, listen, whatever you need, we're here as well, like if anybody needs help. And one thing that actually came back was everybody had to start working from home. So at that time, IKEA in Dublin actually had to shut down. And we actually had a lot of customers coming to us going, listen guys, I have to work from home, and I'm fed up on the kitchen desk, or sitting on the bed. Do you have any desks there I can buy or hire? So we were thinking, like, we have a great team here, designers, and we all sat and project managers. So we all thought about it and went off and did some prototypes, and we actually came up with a great design of how we could actually use all of our skills and attributes as a company with the state-of-the-art equipment and the fantastic team we have. So what we did is we came up with a working from home desk, and then offered something different to the one what was there at the moment, and people could personalize it. So make them, when they had to work from home and something they wanted on their desk, like we've done so many personal ones with family photos on it, pictures of vacations and stuff on it, that they've made it their own space, and especially in their home. But we also thought about it that people are having to be rushed home. They don't have an office in their house, so they have to basically adapt. So what we did is we looked at making the desks that they could flat pack, that you could take them apart in the evening time. It's only, there's no tools involved, so just slots together, quick and easy, 30 seconds. And then if that manifested, it just went bananas. We sold so many of them, even to the point of people were asking about laptop stands. People were going home and having to work on a flat surface with their laptop. So even I have my trusty one here holding up my laptop. It holds up your laptop at an angle, so the camera's more straight in your face. And something simple like that, we've sold thousands of those. And even to the point where an Irish tech influencer bought one. And this is before we set up the website. And when we were looking at setting up the website, he bought one straight away that night. We had 150 orders. And that was before we had a website. So they were all done manually, taking names, taking payments. Absolute nightmare. But from that, we were working with a company to update our website. It was just taking way too long. We're talking weeks because everybody was going online. So we took it upon ourselves. Great design team in here. Everybody helped out. We got a website up and going within the space of 3 hours, from paying for it, having it up online, live, taking orders within 3 hours. So it was great to be able to do that. So that then manifested as well. We had more people coming towards us about the gyms are closing down. So we heard on the news, people were suffering mental health, not being able to go to the gym, and working out from home equipment was really sold out everywhere. So we thought about it. One of the main products that was sold out was a working from home bench, a workout from home bench. So we went off again with our thinking hats on and fresh eyes on it. We developed a workout bench that was flat pack again. There's no tools involved in assembly. There's 2 wing nuts underneath that holds it together. And it's all made again from 18mm furniture grade birch ply, which is the premium panels. And again, letting people personalize it with any types of print that they want on it, club logos, famous artists, anything they want on it, just to make the space their own. As the same thinking with the desks. So again, we that was designed, made, manufactured. We even product tested. So people were saying, "Oh, 2 screens on my desk will it hold?" So we put 350 kilos on the desk. It's going to hold 2 screens. So we even stood on it and everything just to see. And so our desks are rock solid. And again, with our workout benches, we say they can take 250 kilos, but we said, let's push it and see what will happen, and when can we break it. So we got to 500 kilos and ran out of weights, and we said, right, we'll leave it there. We won't go anymore. So, but it's gone. That product has gone really well. So we added more gym products. We added more working from home products, and again, it's just added these little things. But literally at the start, we had a choice. When things happened, like 95% or 99% of what we normally do just stopped, and there was no prospect. Conference, exhibition, and event industry was the first industry to shut down, and it'd be the last to open up. A mass participation event. So it's just that's first gone and last open. So it's either that, I have a great team here, it's either that, let them all go and just hope for when it does come back, and when it comes back, and hopefully we're still around, but it's either that or innovate, use our fantastic team, because we are a family run business. My wife is involved, my mother and father who started the business are still involved, still knocking around thinking that they're the bosses, but they're still knocking about. And also we have my cousins worked here, and we have a team of 15 full time. And so it's either just shut up shop, let them all go, or else innovate, move, and try offer something to customers. So it's been really, really good for us. And thankfully it's been very successful, and I was able to retain all our staff, and we've been able to innovate and continue moving as well.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. That's just a fantastic story. it sounds like, this has almost taken over your business. I mean, will you keep on doing this stuff, or do you think it's just temporary, and will you go back to business as usual when events reopen?
Yeah, it's definitely, we're just the way we've positioned it, and because of the products that we're doing are very innovative, and we're getting sales all over the UK and Europe and America even. So like the sales are there. So definitely afterwards we might just put it to one side, because Vinehall Displays, we're a company around for 33 years in Dublin, and we have a great name. And before this happened, before COVID, our number one source of new business was referrals. So people referring us for a new business, and it was our number one source, and it was always B2B. So our business model was 100% business to business, and we were dealing with all large companies, Coca-Cola's, all the banks, pharmaceutical companies, all supermarkets in Ireland, all of them for so many years. And then from that to our new business model is business to customer. It's a total sea change. The expectation is a bit higher. It's higher in terms of customer service, speed of delivery, which we were used to anyway, because we're in the show business world from conference and events. But it's just a totally different business. And yes, we'll definitely look at keeping it, but it probably won't be in the Vinehall Displays. It'll be something they call something else in the future. So.
Okay, well, fantastic. Good luck with it. Danny, you said in your video piece that you felt that MAMS had been perhaps lucky to be in the right place when all this happened, and that the business for some of your publishing clients actually grew during the period because of magazine subscriptions and because you had direct mail clients who were in home retail lines of business. With hindsight, that sounds like it might have been a reason to relax a little bit compared to what other people were doing. But from what you told us, it sounds like you decided to push ahead to add further value via personalization in your products. Can you tell us a bit more about what you actually did?
I can. I'm actually sat here feeling slightly inadequate after listening to Jerry's story there. That was great. Thanks, Jerry. Great story. Yes, we did. We've taken the time. I think we've kind of had two groups of customers. We've had those who have carried on trading during this period, and as you've just reiterated there, we had people in that home retail sector, which of course was very active, particularly during the first lockdown, because people were bored out of their minds. They still had an income, most people at least anyway, who were on furlough, and they wanted to entertain themselves, and part of that was shopping. I'm sure they were shopping for perfectly respectable products as well, and required products, but I think there's a lot of frivolousness as well, but that's fine. So that kept us busy, and then it is true to say that some of our other customers did not get quite as busy. So, for example, Michael, if I could say, the travel sector absolutely collapsed. Everyone knows that. We're all sat here now waiting for the vaccine and trying to hop on a plane to Turkey or whatever it is you fancy next. Those customers we've carried on working with, even though they've been very quiet for obvious reasons, they've chosen to take this time to do some of those things that they perhaps should have done in previous years, but never quite had the time. So that's not a criticism. So they've got around to a lot more focus on their data, a lot more focus on their customers and what they do with those customers, so that when they turn back on again, which some of them are starting to do now, the communications we're sending out for them are going to be a lot more focused on the individual. They're being sensible around it too, because we all know that your marketing can become stalking if you're not careful and you know too much about someone. So try to avoid that, of course. But that's been quite beneficial for us, and that's worked quite well. And also, our customers in the publications sector, it's been a good time to talk to them to say, look, we know that people like those publications, particularly people who subscribe. They're looking forward to that publication arriving. They're bored. What do you want to do with that? So we've helped them to work a little bit harder as well in using a paper wrap, sorting out their ecology and coming away from using polyethylene, so just using paper, but then to personalize onto that paper as well. Also to sell little advertising space on there too for whatever is going on inside the magazines that are being delivered. And of course, sometimes just reacting to things seasonally, geographically, regionally, however that happens to be. So that's been where our effort has been expended during this time.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned sustainability there, because one of the sort of themes that I kind of picked up over the last few months is that, as often happens, when things go bad, the green issues tend to get pushed to the back of the queue. Has it been the case, amongst your client base that they are as keen as ever on that side of it? Has there been even greater focus, perhaps, in some ways?
I think the latter. I think there's probably been a keener focus. It's partly because the public, when they have time on their hands, and I shouldn't speak about the public as though they're the great unwashed and we're not, but when the public have time on their hands, they do tend to pick faults with things. It's the reason that live television events work, isn't it? Really, they can't wait to dial up and pick on an individual, and I think the ecology can be a big part of that too. I would also some of the interesting little anecdotes that have come out with it too. People have been spending much more time in their gardens, certainly during the first lockdown, and I know no one's going to look back too fondly on 2020, but if we do, on reflection, we have to say we were pretty lucky with the weather, really. And during the first lockdown, people could be outside, they could be in the gardens. Those types of companies that were selling into that sector had a bumper time of it. But of course, because people are in the gardens, they become more ecologically aware as well. So, and the kids, of course, are at home all the time. So it's kind of, Dad, how dare you, tear that polythene wrapper off your golfing magazine or whatever it happens to be. So I think that's happened too, Michael. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I mean, certainly for those who had gardens, I made the most of mine, I have to say. Turning to Mark, BCA was clearly very exposed to the shutdown because of events stopping in late March. From what you've told me in separate conversations, I understand that one particular new piece of kit was central to being able to open up at least a couple of brand new lines of business for you, one in consumer-facing products and one in packaging. Can you tell us all a bit more about those, please?
It all probably started at the beginning of the year. We were probably had our best start for around about 5 years. Was looking forward to the year coming forward. I'd arranged to go to a few exhibitions, and one of those was at the NEC, which was to do with packaging. And like most of these, you don't probably think that you're going to learn something from it. But when I got there, I was really, really surprised with what was going on with packaging. Embellishments and everything else that was there. And all of a sudden, it was a bit of a wake-up call. And so anyway, came back, and literally within a week, you could feel that this COVID was now starting to move along. I think by the start of March, we'd got a full order book, and we were looking to increase on our target. But then as each week went past, each of the jobs get cancelled or they were postponed. And then by the end of March, the phones literally went dead. I was trying to talk to customers to see what was happening. Uncertainty was the name of the game, really. And it was just a matter of how long might this go on for. So we tried to keep in contact with our customers. A lot of them were event companies. So it was, it was a bit of a killer, really. And what happened after that was that I decided, look, that we just couldn't carry on the way we were, hoping that things were going to change. We were going to have to make that change for ourselves. So we put our hats on and decided to do a fair amount of R&D. We got talking to people locally with other print companies. I also got in contact with a large local packaging company, and I found out that all of their inquiries that they would receive for very small numbers of packaging boxes, they couldn't actually do. And with that in mind, we looked at some machinery and decided upon having a look. And so we decided to go down to showroom, and we probably had about 3 or 4 visits. We took a load of our collateral with us to see how it performed. And really by the end of that, I then realised that if we were going to do something that was going to create new opportunities for us, we had to do it now. We had to get the technology under our belts so that we could come out of this period stronger and in terms of being able to offer a different type of print product. We'd obviously dealt with lots of companies. Most of our business was referral, but I now see that if we are going to progress, we need to look at packaging, we need to look at the consumer market if we are going to carry on in terms of e-commerce. So aligned with this flatbed cutter and also our other technology that we had, which was digital foiling, it's opened up a whole new market to us that wasn't there before, in the fact that we don't need a die anymore, we don't need a block to foil, we are well versed in variable data, and so it's now cost effective for people to do small little runs of boxes or whatever it might be. And I think that in the coming year, that as the whole economy changes, there are going to be lots of people who are going to start up their own little businesses. And this is where, for us, we feel that there'll be a fair amount of work for us in the future. So I'm where I was probably middle of the year, quite despondent about things. It's completely turned around. And I can now see that there is a good path for us to move forward. As long as we collaborate with all of our other businesses around us, you've got to keep talking to people because without that, then you just go backwards. And I think that gone are the days now when you are too protective over your business. You've literally got to get out there and see the other digital printers that are local to you, talk to them and collaborate. And I think that if you can do that, you can then start to find a way forward that hopefully will save your business. And yeah.
Well, that sounds like a very good idea, I'm sure, for a lot of people who have joined us this afternoon. I'm just interested on this whole digital foiling, die cutting and so on. What level of awareness do you find there is in the market that you can even do these things?
Well, it's quite new. I was a little bit surprised that that there, in terms of some of the machinery, you've got to look at how you can apply that to your business. And so with me, in terms of the consumer market, what you can see is that using variable data, variable foiling and cutting, you can offer these very, very niche products. Now, lots of other digital printers, I think, have just looked at producing brochures and everything else as they would do. But it's the creativity that you need to look at. This technology in itself is okay, but in order, I think, for you to make a success of it, you've got to be a lot more creative. And that's where printers need to fundamentally look. I don't think it's a case of it's business as usual if you can come out of this. I think everyone will be radically different and there will be new markets that come out of all of this. And a good job too, because print is a good communication. And I just think that if you can look at all of the options for you, then it might be that you can come out with a brand new product that will take the market. I don't know, but it's using technology that way and being creative with it. And that for me is where we need to go.
Excellent. Well, you won't hear me arguing with that. Looking at whether we get back to the old normal or find a new one, perhaps coming to you, Gary, the way you described your group's response seemed to split into two tracks, really. One was a pivot towards COVID-related products, the PPE, the signage and so on. And the other was reviewing what you called the legacy lines of business, which were sort of existing products, applications that would still be relevant in the new climate. Can you tell us a little bit more about both of those tracks, please?
Yeah. So initially, it was obviously about, well, I suppose with regard, both things were about relevance. So a lot of our business is channeled through resellers, particularly through where the trade buys. So the COVID secure products were really a reaction to what we needed to do with our facility to make sure that it was safe. And like all crises, it throws up opportunities. Jerry obviously picked up on a fantastic one with regard to the home working transition. I think we were all in a very high state of alertness. And if you listen very carefully, you can pick up on the opportunities. So obviously the return to work and signage and COVID security and screens and so on and so forth were all good revenue streams. They were relevant products, and it did two jobs for us. I think one, it kept the team busy because we were productizing every day. We were getting the products to market on the websites very quickly. So we were all very energized. I think that was healthy. Secondly, it gave our resellers something to talk to their customers about. And that was absolutely crucial, because keeping that connection, those first few months, whether it was a large corporate or as a smaller business, everybody just stopped. They didn't know what to say to their customers or how to say it, so they just stopped. And by taking them things which were relevant, we were able to restart those conversations. And we have 8,000 resellers that we work with on where the trade buys. So it's important that we could keep them connected and with something relevant to say. And with regard to reviewing the other products, it was really a similar transition. Okay, what do our customers need now? So if you are, for example, a local restaurant business, then you were going through the process of launching click and collect or takeout because you were closed. So what we were simply doing was taking old legacy products like flyers and booklets and posters, but we were presenting them in context. And we created social media campaigns which showed a restaurant poster. We now offer a takeaway service in context. It sounds really simple, but it takes some time to execute. But then we fed that out through the social media channels. We also put them in the hands of our resellers that could also put it out through their social media channels. And what it allowed was the customers to realise that print had a role to play in those products. So that was a really crucial part of the recovery, which was really keeping us in touch with our customers and our customers' customers.
Yeah, interesting, Gary, that you mentioned social media there, because of course one of the effects of the lockdown is that we all stopped interacting in person, and we all spend our time, like we are this afternoon, sat in front of computer screens talking to each other. I mean, obviously social media was huge before any of this happened. Has it become an even more important channel for printers now?
Yeah, I think all digital channels are increasingly important. Part of the work that we did with the merger was to bring in an e-commerce business into the group, and it's a technology-first approach. So one of the big mega trends through the whole crisis is the explosion in e-commerce and e-commerce selling. That opens up a raft of opportunities for the sector as a whole. There's a startup culture, which Mark talked to as well earlier, where people are opening micro e-commerce businesses. E-commerce is a great channel for us, particularly if it's product-based rather than service-based, because it needs inbox media, it needs packaging, it needs labels, it needs instructions, it needs all sorts of things. One of the advantages of e-commerce and social is the speed that you're able to execute and the speed that you're able to roll things out. And that's going to be absolutely crucial going forward. I suppose, in essence, it's about the bigger task that we all have, which is making print simple to use and simple to choose. And that's something that we've been struggling with as an industry, and we need to work much harder at. And the better we all get at that, the more successful we'll be in the future.
Indeed. Okay, turning to Ian. in the edited highlights, you told us that your connection with the Faber Expertise side of the business in Europe meant that you got a little bit of advance warning of what was coming to the UK as the coronavirus advanced and governments locked down and responded in various ways. And that as a result of that, you perhaps got a little bit of a heads up on what was coming and maybe what to do about it. What did those other companies tell you? What did you do as a result? Did what they do in the Netherlands or Germany or Poland or wherever work in the UK?
I think some of the things did, some of them didn't. I think face masks was something that our German company went hell for leather at. But I think we were always a little bit concerned that maybe the Far East would get their supply chain sorted fairly quickly, and we were worried about the cost of making them in the UK versus competing with the lower production cost market. So we were a little bit slow there, and I think ultimately the Germans ended up with 500,000 handmade face masks in a warehouse that they couldn't sell because actually you could buy them from Lidl cheaper than you could actually make the damn things in Germany. So I was sort of quite glad we were a bit slow there until we managed to get a different product, and then we, like Jerry, launched a website to sell custom face masks direct to people. But it was a very different product, so a single layer one that we knew we could make very quickly, very simply, and actually compete at the right price. I think the other thing that the biggest help, I think, was we've historically probably been about 80% fabric in what we make, and we were lucky. We had sort of flatbed UV printers and roll-to-roll printers, and we've been telling people come and use us for that kind of product. We probably weren't working as hard as that as we suddenly had to do, because those were the printers with the capability to supply what clients wanted. So a little bit like Gary, we were working really, really hard to push all of that COVID safety stuff, and we've got a lot of resellers too, so we produced a whole raft of marketing materials for them to market for themselves unbranded. We were able to steal a lot of artwork and collateral from the other group members to hit the market quickly. I think the one thing that I think everybody is sharing here is, we decided we've got to fight this. We can't roll over and die. So we launched lots of things very quickly. Probably got in the warehouse a whole host of defective sanitizer stands, which we went a little bit too quickly on. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with those. Maybe get an artist to make some art form with them later to remember the horrors of 2020, because we won't be selling them. But we did do ranges of sanitizer stands and all this kind of stuff. So I think it was just having a couple of weeks advance notice of where the market was going meant that we could get stuck in, because I think one of the things that's happened more than ever is, yes, we've got a lot closer to our colleagues abroad, but actually we've got a lot closer to our suppliers, because at certain parts there were real stock issues with a number of items, which if you were in the COVID signage market, you really needed access to that. And because we got in there early, because we made commitments, I think we got a real partnership going, because suppliers were being a little bit greedy. And I think we've very much decided who our partners are for the long term, because how they behaved with us while this was going on.
Okay. Interesting. You spoke about continuing to invest in marketing, and you did actually express a concern that you didn't want to become too strongly associated with the COVID-related products, as in the sanitizer stations you just mentioned, and possibly
does anybody want one?
Focus.
Everybody one for every delegate.
Okay, well we'll sort out the addresses for those later. But I mean, is that an issue that you're being kind of dragged away from where the core business is? And if you are, does it matter?
No, I think I'm quite pleased with the balance that we got. And in fact, this month, bizarrely, we saw probably, I don't know if anybody else is seeing this, but we've seen more of a traditional shape of business coming into the sales this month. And it's ironic because I must admit, we went into brainstorm heavy duty panic mode at the start of second lockdown because we were really concerned about what this would mean. And so we really started aggressively marketing and making the sales team really get on it. But actually what happened was perhaps a little bit of an unnecessary panic, because as the month has gone on, we've seen a bit more confidence going into the market as vaccines have come on board, and the orders that are coming in are far more related to our traditional stuff. But actually what we're seeing is we're because we were pushing into those other areas, now whereas with retailers or certain events we might only have been doing the fabric stuff before, now we're doing the full package because people were buying the vinyl, the boards and all that kind of stuff off us because they needed those for the COVID products. So it's early days, but I'm cautiously optimistic that actually one of the byproducts of this period will be that it'll change the shape of our business. It will become more of a full rounded set of products out of this rather than that dependency on fabric.
Okay, well, that sounds like not entirely a bad thing. Nicole, I saw you nodding along to some of the things there that Ian was saying about the business looking a little bit more like normal in the last month or so. Just going back to what you mentioned in your pre-recorded video, you'd have to say that making a significant hardware investment doesn't seem like the most obvious thing to do when your business has fallen off a cliff, as you put it. I mean, was this something that you were thinking about anyway, or did it happen purely because of the downturn?
No, purely because of the downturn. So we were shut for 6 weeks, I think. And literally day one we came back, I said to the other directors, we need to buy a new printer. And you can imagine their faces. And I sort of set myself a challenge to see how long that would take for me to turn them around. But essentially we had 2 hybrids, and what we've replaced the 2 with is one. But that one hybrid is as quick as both of them put together. It's also, it's a newer, better machine. And it's meant from the deal we were able to broker, where we've cut our costs a lot in certain areas. So in one way, it does seem a crazy thing to do. When you look at the figures, it really isn't. It was quite a sensible choice.
Okay, so there's perhaps potential for other people to look at whether a new investment might actually be both more productive and perhaps cheaper to run than something that they already had. I mean, you did some other things as well during the period. You also mentioned investing in marketing, and I think you said that you bought an MIS as well. And on top of all of that, you did a management buyout as well over the summer. So that's a lot of things going on. I mean, again, how much of this was pushed by COVID and how much was just kind of in the pipeline anyway?
The management buyout would have happened earlier. We were literally about to push the button, and we were going to do it 1st of April, and then obviously everything went wrong.
Went sideways. Yeah.
So we considered it. We were told we were allowed to opt out of it, but we thought, well, we'll just push on. We'll do it anyway. I think we spent time looking at what we do and thinking. We didn't pivot. We didn't do anything new. We did do a lot of COVID work, but it's the sort of work we do anyway. It was saying stand 2 meters apart instead of buy this, so it's very similar products. But we just looked at everything we did and thought, well, how can we make it better? Because things will get better. The market will pick up. And we wanted to be there when the market does pick up, saying, right, we've got a new MIS system, which essentially once it's up and running, it's almost web to print. It's not quite, but it's not far off. Which will help us. We could potentially open up a couple of new markets with the new printer, and we've done a fair bit of marketing. One of the things that I wanted to do during the 6 weeks that we were locked down was the website, which I started and I still haven't finished, so that's still to be continued. The guys doing the website hate me, I think, but we will get there. And so I think for us, we just took stock and we just thought, well, look, we know we've got a viable business. We know we've got a good team. And whilst we've got financial support with the furlough for the 6 weeks, we'll just do what we can to make sure that our business runs better when we're back up and running.
Okay, so time to retrench and invest and get ready for things picking up. Okay, well, we've got some questions coming in now from the viewers. Given that we're sort of close to the end of our second lockdown, but about to emerge into various tiers, tier 3 for us here, it looks like, which is bad news. This question is particularly pertinent. How are current COVID measures around the UK such as the updated 3-tier system in England and the knock-on consequences for retail, hospitality, sport, etc., likely to impact your businesses, if at all? So, I mean, who would like to take that one? I would think, we've got at least a couple of companies here, but maybe 3 at least, very much exposed to those sectors. Does anybody want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I'll make it. Oh, sorry, go on, Gary.
Mark.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, my customers are stadia and events people, and for them, they're operating either from home, but also with stadia. There does seem to be a possibility that we might be able to get people back into stadiums, but for the moment, that doesn't look like that's going to be anytime soon. And so for us, in terms of the decisions that we've made in trying to diversify, that's the area that we've got to push towards. And hopefully, at some point, I suppose, then the other companies that we've been dealing with will come back on board. But again, I think that that will change as well, because they will be doing things virtually, and it'll be a bit of a hybrid for them. They'll be doing events that are on Zoom and so forth, but there'll also be face-to-face events. So for me and our business, we've got to look at consumers, and when the stadiums and the security side of things come back on stream again, then we can grapple with that. But at the moment, for me, it's a case of having to look elsewhere at the moment and forged a path through with our packaging and other consumable products. I think that will tide us over. We'll be a lot stronger for it after things do start to become a little bit more normal, and greater for it. And the one thing it has done is just opened my mind that we've got to be quite creative now, whereas before we were just reliant on work coming in and we were doing it. And I think that that's the most important thing that I can take from this whole situation. It's difficult for people to understand sometimes, but I think that I'm a glass half full person, and I think that there are opportunities from all of this, and you've just got to try and search them out. And I think that we've had time to think about it, and I think we've now got our direction pretty well fixed. And as I said earlier, it's about collaboration and those sorts of things I wasn't necessarily doing before. And so for me, it's a double-sided edge, isn't it? It's you get this situation which you really don't want, but then when you've got it, you've got to adapt. And I think one thing that the print industry is very good at is adapting. And yeah, so I'm fairly hopeful, and yeah, we'll just have to see where it takes us.
Okay. Did anybody else want to come in on that one? I've got a few more questions piling up behind. Gary.
Yeah, just to say, I mean, in terms of the impact of the new restrictions, I think Ian pointed out earlier that the second lockdown, which I expect we were all cautious about, really didn't have a major effect on volumes. And indeed, what we're seeing now across all channels for perhaps different reasons is an increase of business as usual projects, again, as Ian said. I think there's a vaccine bounce. I think the vaccine really changes the perspective. So there's a missing bit, which is events and entertainment and tourism, which probably accounts for a large part of what we all do. That's still going to be missing for some time. I think everyone can see an end point. And just like our businesses have had challenges, almost every other business, but not all, has had challenges as well. And what they now need to do is to start connecting with their customers. And there are channels, particularly things like direct mail, which a lot of clients are finding being ultra effective through this period because people are sat at home. And those channels are starting to be utilised. So we're seeing pre-COVID levels at the moment, certainly in the last couple of weeks since the vaccines.
Okay, so there's a big vaccine bounce, as you said, a boost of optimism, if not antibodies. Okay, we've got a couple of questions that kind of sit together quite well. Again, around the packaging side. One segment that stayed strong through this time is the packaging sector. Are any of the panel looking seriously in this area, especially with the retail sector having shorter print runs, which change often? Everything from labels to traditional flexo wraps. And then there was another question that kind of tacks onto the back of that. If you're a commercial printer or a communications company, how far down the packaging rabbit hole do you go? Do you mop up the short run work that bigger packaging houses can't or don't want to handle? Or do you pitch yourself as an alternative supplier to incumbents? If the latter, what is the USP as a long-term packaging player? So, I mean, I think a lot of this, again, plays straight to what you were talking about, Mark, but if anybody else wants to jump in on packaging, be my guest. You're up, Mark.
Well, yeah, just going back, I think that because we've got an informal agreement with a large packaging company very close to us, we're able to, I suppose, piggyback in providing solutions for them in terms of their small run stuff. We can also confidently go out now and look for the larger work as well. And I just think that packaging has had a renaissance, or seems to have had a renaissance, and there are lots of innovative box work coming out, very, very embellished, and I don't necessarily think it's a rabbit hole. It seems to have been very buoyant over this whole time. And for me, it's the one area that we can definitely be successful at. And so it's, yeah, I think packaging is going to get stronger and stronger.
Okay, Gary, you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say that there is no question that there's a huge opportunity with regard to packaging. But I think probably the first job is to connect with the right customers. A lot of the challenges that we're talking about today is that we deal with customers that use a lot of print. What we've got to do is to connect with customers who are e-commerce e-tailers that are actually sending things out. And the point there is that there's more to do with inbox media than just the box. So kitting yourself up to be able to print packaging can be tricky. But actually the leaflets, the labels, the booklets, the brochures, all of the things that you already do, those customers need. Probably the first thing is to make that connection, which is the first on the list, I would say.
Okay, thanks. Questions conveniently coming up in thematic clumps at the moment, which always helps. A more general one. Have any of the panelists begun strategizing for 2021 yet? And if so, how much of that planning is affected or guided by the pandemic? And then a sort of supplementary question. With each company on show having added new strings to their company bows, how have you gone about the budgeting process for 2021, especially as each of the 4 quarters next year will be different? Danny, let's hear your thoughts on that. 2021, what are you going to do?
Well, the temptation is to say bury my head in the sand and hope it's not like this year, but we won't be doing that. No, do you know, it's a really good question, and I think it's also a very open-ended one, really. We're all tortured by what 2021 is going to be. By the way, I'm not a real doctor. I just found the face mask, so nor am I the Prime Minister. So I don't know when the vaccine is really going to be effective, as does anyone else. But I think we have a feeling, and I think Gary particularly just kind of touched on that, in that there is a sense of growing optimism around from the first vaccine announcement a couple of weeks ago and the 2 that followed. I think the public is starting to feel that the world is about to open up to them, and even though they may be, in some cases, hopefully in most cases, obeying the rules at the moment, I think people are starting to plan for the future. I think that is starting to get reflected through business. It certainly is in the travel sector. I'm sure any of us who are dealing in the travel sector at all are getting some fairly frantic phone calls right now, and people realizing that they're going to have to make a grab, and they know that there's money to be grabbed now. You know, they're doing book early deals, and some of this kind of stuff is going on. I think that's probably going to be true of the retail sector as well. Unfortunately, because of where I work and my sector, it does give me a slightly myopic view, because, and again, Gary has touched on this, in that I can see the effect of direct mail, and I'm quite optimistic for 2021. Not blindly optimistic. I mean, like Mark, I'm a bit of a glass half full kind of a guy, but even if the glass is half empty, I always think there's room for more rum in it anyway. So one way or the other, I think 2021 is going to be a good year. Certainly compared to this one, but planning, budgeting, trying to map it out, I think everyone's got to be quite cautious. I think we're going to step as gingerly as we can. I think we're all quite well defended by the moves that the Chancellor has made, and I think it was probably a bit of a surprise to many people. I'd be interested to hear alternative views on this, but to suddenly find, a few weeks ago that the whole furlough scheme was getting extended until the end of March. I mean, for me, that was right out of left field. I was amazed. I thought that would be creeping forward a month or 6 weeks at a time. So it certainly changed my view of what I need to do next. Frankly, I think it probably has to end at the end of March. I'd love to be wrong for those people who are on furlough, but having said that, I'd love to be right for the sake of the economy.
Fair enough. Ian, what's it looking like for you?
Well, I think that's, as Danny's saying, it's very difficult to put a figure on what next year is going to be. But I think, like a number of the other panelists, we are reliant historically on events, on exhibitions, on sport. And these are all things which haven't happened, and they're all industries which have been very badly damaged. We talk about furlough and people who haven't been let go, but we know of lots and lots of our clients who've unfortunately lost their jobs. And we know lots of businesses who are a shadow of the size that they used to be because of the changes that they've done. So we've kind of taken the view that we need to strengthen our sales operations. We've started recruiting now to try and have a bigger team ready for the new year, because we know we're going to have to work harder to get a share of what business is out there. But also, I think we have to have the right people to support those businesses that are rising up again out of the ashes and out of periods of long dormancy. So we're trying to ensure that the people that we're hiring are as much experts in the areas that they're selling to as salespeople. Obviously, I always want them to be salespeople first and foremost, but I think they need to be people that have the creativity to help these businesses come back into fruition, because I think a lot of them in those sectors particularly won't have the resource to do all that they could do a year ago. So I think that the role of a printer will become a bit wider in terms of all of the other aspects around what we do. And I think that's going to be a challenge. And I think that creativity that so many people on the panel have shown will move to supporting the clients even more in making things happen in a more cost-effective way or a more innovative way.
Okay. Speaking of companies, becoming shadows of the former selves, trying to recover into next year, perhaps the elephant in the room is addressed by this next question. Can the panel please share their views, opinions and strategies for dealing with a very possible no-deal Brexit, and how they will mitigate the impact on their print business activities? Now, on this one, I'm going to ask Jerry to give us the view from the EU side, if you will.
Yeah, so we do quite a bit in the UK, but we kind of felt the Brexit hit last year, just with coming up to the March time last year. There was a bit of a lull because there's a lot of fighting going on, a lot of worrying, and I know. So like we've Brexit, because we have the open border here with the north that we travel quite regularly up and across. So for there to be any checks between that border, it would be quite difficult for business to continue to operate across borders, and also like the whole Brexit question. It's just because the government are coming to us for a long time now, going, "Are you prepared? Here's this advisor. Talk to this guy to set up what you need." And we've had guys here, and they haven't a clue what's going to happen. We don't have a clue what's going to happen. So this plan is what we're doing around Brexit is instead of wasting time and money on it, just let it happen. Just have the basics ready. Be ready for an audio, which is just have your ready, especially dealing with conference, exhibition, and events. That we have our Carney rules and set up and join the associations that we need to join. But it's just car crash. If it happens, no deal. I just see in terms of us for work wise, we'd be okay because we've opened channels and opened up a bit of business in France and stuff, which kind of came because of Brexit. Just a lot of companies that used to use UK companies want to keep using English speaking companies, and which we've actually seen a bounce from that, which is a bit like it's unexpected. We didn't think that was going to come, but we've seen a bit of a bounce in working in the likes of France. But it's just in terms of what we're doing to prepare. Just we've got everything we need to have ready, but nobody knows what's going to happen. They could pull it out of the bag, and especially now with what's happening in the US as well. They're just around Biden, and he's a strong affiliation with Ireland at the moment, and he kind of knows what's happening in regards if it is a hard border up the north, and if that is in place, what he's been there, so he kind of knows the trouble that would kick off if it did, unfortunately. Because we have moved, Ireland has moved way past all that, but there is still people there that are very narrow-minded and don't understand or don't see the benefits of what they have. So it's a crazy time. But again, there's nothing you can do to prepare. It's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and just be ready for worst case scenario. Fail to prepare to fail, and all that. But just have the basics ready, and then when it does happen, because when Boris announced there a couple of months ago, with the live events are closed down we had 5 or 6 events in London and Birmingham in January, February, and boom, they're gone. Click of a finger, and so we feel it both sides, and we're trying to keep up with what's going on. But it's Brexit's going to be an interesting time for everybody.
Interesting times indeed. There is a follow-up question on Brexit. Actually, I've just seen. What are the panelists expecting from their suppliers post-Brexit? What does it look like in Hull, Nicole?
Most of our suppliers are UK based, but obviously
Okay.
they get their products from overseas, and they're all assuring us everything's going to be fine. But I'm kind of in the same boat of thinking nobody knows what's going to happen. So they can reassure us all they want that everything's going to be fine, but who knows really?
Indeed, I think we're probably all in that boat at the moment, and most especially the people who are supposed to be agreeing it. A more COVID-related question. How soon will the panelists be willing to step back onto an exhibition floor? Or has COVID-19 fundamentally changed forever how you see, learn, educate yourself about new product developments and innovations in digital print? Who'd like to speak to that?
I'm happy to speak on that one. I'm happy to go to exhibitions and events. I'm looking forward to them again. I do think that there will be more hybrid events where there's online as well as going to the exhibition. I think a lot of people have been building some good software from that. So perhaps you'll actually go to the exhibition, you'll scan something, and then when you get back, you'll be able to see it in 3D on your screen and maybe still go round the stand. I've seen some really interesting software with that, where you could basically turn your stand into a sales room and have that on your website, so someone could come and see you physically in your space. If they're unable to get there for whatever reason, they'd also be able to do it virtually. So I think that kind of thing will definitely happen. But personally, I'm happy to travel. I'm happy to go to exhibitions as soon as we can, really.
Yes, well, they are hard to replace in the virtual space, but I agree with you. There are some very interesting technical developments around what can be done in the purely online or the mixed and hybrid environment. A question that came earlier that didn't seem to fit at the time, but a generic one. Does the panel all agree that the digital print sector is better positioned to be agile in the coming months with all the changes ahead of us? And then references specifically, I believe the digital embellishment market is about to boom. Do you agree? Well, I would guess from what Mark has said, he does agree with that. Does anybody else?
I can speak to that one, Michael, if you like.
Sure, please.
I do think, and again, I think we've probably touched on a few points earlier. Nicole has just spoken about, the strides that have been made, massive strides that have been made in technology, simply because we haven't been able to go anywhere. It's, how it's been a case of how can we do this better. I think Jerry, when he was speaking earlier as well, he touched on the influence of influencers, if you like, just getting one person, one influencer to buy a laptop stand, and suddenly, you can change your business overnight. So I think all of those things are relevant to this entire conversation in terms of what happens with digital print. It is also the case that other companies, whilst they've been sat, and they're not on here now, and it may be, of course, some of the exhibitors would speak to some of these points also, perhaps in the discussion section afterwards, because what have they been doing in this downtime? We've all been innovating in our businesses. We've all been doing things to make ourselves better and more presentable to the new normal, whatever that quite turns out to be. We're guessing a little bit. I'm sure they've been doing the same. So I think it will be interesting to see what they have to say about such things as print embellishment and into the digital world and how that's worked too.
Indeed. Well, I think they're all going to be around. If anybody wants to go and talk to them afterwards about that, please do that. This phrase, the new normal, in my mind, it just sounds like a new kind of static arrangement. But when I think about it, I think it almost certainly won't be. And that what might be normal from now on is that things are going to keep on changing. Or do you agree? Do you think we're going to go back to pretty much things as they were? If we get these vaccines out, we get, various political situations a little more settled. Are we going back to where we were, or has it changed forever? I can see Jerry shaking his head.
Yeah, no, they definitely see just pick up on a few of those points as well. Or even around the spaces for exhibitions, technology is coming, and also around print. Also, like, we need to embrace technology and what's coming and what people are doing, and then telling clients that you can listen. You don't have to abandon print to jump on technology. You can do both. So like what we're doing at the moment, we're messing around with augmented reality and filters, Instagram filters and things like that. It's something simple, something that everybody has in their hand. Everyone's got Facebook, Instagram, but like there's easy ways to marry the print for events. So like the augmented reality thing it's got, especially around exhibitions and events, it's really taken off, and it will. The other side of this, because hybrid is going to be here, it is going to stay. And like we did a backdrop there for a client that had a virtual event, a large accountancy firm, and it was after the Irish budget, and he was saying like normally they'd have an event, he'd spent 20 to 25, 30,000 on the event after to go through the tax implications for the budget, and he says lucky to get 80 people, max 80 people, and he says they went online, and he says they got 350. And of those 350, they're all high people, all the people that they needed, and they were targeting. So he says, like, the return on investment, it would cost 1/10 of what it normally cost. That they only rented a studio, 3 presenters, and it was a lot cheaper to run. So he says, like, the future, they see a value in the hybrid model. So they're definitely going to keep that going. But business is a face-to-face operation. Like, people need to meet, people need to talk. It is about building relationships. So like it is, so that's why exhibitions will return, but they will be different, and businesses will have to innovate to kind of stay to be relevant, because people aren't going to go around anymore. They want to, Nicole was saying that they're going to take out their phones, they've got to hold it up to an exhibition stand. They wanted to do something now. They want to walk into your showroom virtually there and then and chat away to you, and you have to wow people because they've been sitting at home. They want something, they need something as well. So face to face it will return, but yeah. So.
Well, that's really interesting, because obviously the evolution of the exhibitions sector within our own industry is going to be very interesting to watch. This year we should have had FESPA in March, we should have had Drupa in June. Both now put off till next year. And Drupa in particular, from the digital print point of view, nearly all the big players have already said they're not going to go to it. And they are all planning online /hybrid /small local events. I mean, just going back to that question about who wants to go to events, who will go to FESPA next year in Amsterdam? Who will go to Drupa in, well, Drupa's always Düsseldorf, isn't it? There's no question about that one. But who's going to go? Show of hands.
I think
most of you.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? We've been through a period of change, and I think there's almost certainly some things that are going to stick, and there are going to some things that we're going to run straight back to. I think nobody probably misses commuting for an hour each day on a packed train, if that's what they do. And I don't think there's any question that a lot of us will be working from home at least a couple of days a week. However, I can see absolutely clearly, and we spoke to this a little earlier, that the travel companies are marketing really hard now because they know that people have the money to book the holiday and they want something to look forward to. Most people will be very happy to get on an aeroplane, considering we understand the risks of COVID and how to protect ourselves now. They will get on an aeroplane straight away as soon as it's easy to do and they can get back without quarantine. And I think to some extent it's the same with events. It isn't necessarily just about the exhibition. It's primarily, in my view, about the things you come across accidentally, and also the collaborative piece. That's probably the highest value, is where you bump into somebody that you didn't make a Zoom appointment with, and you have a conversation you weren't expecting. That's what you come away with. That's the magic. And we have missed that. And I think that accidental opportunity, we're going to go seeking again.
Yeah, well, I agree entirely with that, Gary, and I call it serendipity, but it's the conversations, the meetings, the things that you see that you didn't go expecting. We've just had a couple of last questions pop through. One of them is, whilst digital lends itself to last-minute production, it seems that recently every order for materials is based on whoever has the stock gets the order. Is that a fair comment, or have the panelists seen any change recently in the ordering patterns? I'm thinking maybe for the guys on the wide format side, where you deal with a lot of different stocks and substrates, this perhaps might be more of an issue than, say, for those who tend to print on the same stuff all the time. Ian or Nicole, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, I think that was very much the case at certain times. You know, dare I say it, floor vinyl was always an interesting battle. It was, it went from loo rolls to floor vinyl in terms of shortages, didn't it, for a while? And then it became the acrylics and all this kind of stuff. But I think that you need to be able to buy the product or a substitute at the right price. And so I think what we've seen is certain people were very astute and bought enormous quantities at very good prices. And I think they tended to be the ones that maybe got the orders against somebody else who was trying to buy stock in at a higher price, because the warehouses only had limited stocks and they weren't really inclined to give you a big discount on it. And I think those days are sort of passing now. Certainly, we're not seeing so many stock supply issues on stuff now. I think people have caught up. I think Brexit will be interesting, because if we do end up with huge queues of lorries on their way into the UK, that could end up with something, and that will also affect coming in from Asia as well, because anything coming in through those docks will have a little bit of a delay in there. And I know it goes back to an earlier question, Michael, but I think that there's a point. If we assume that stocks are okay for everybody, I think that might be a positive for a lot of printers, because many people were buying cheap print from Eastern Europe, and actually, if you've got the modern equipment, you can get pretty close to those prices now. And actually, reshoring print, I think, will probably be quite a big part of Brexit. So we're seeing that. I suppose we're quite lucky. I mean, literally before this call, I came off a call with my colleague in Holland, and we're going to be doing 2 of their retail clients' UK stuff. They used to print it all in one batch and send the van over, but the client doesn't want that anymore because it's just too insecure for them. So I think things like that might be positive.
Okay, well, I certainly view reshoring as an interesting and positive development. Just one question finally. It's quite a specific one and specific to textiles. I'm not sure whether anyone will feel able to advise on this, but I've been asked What must I do to start a low-cost direct-to-garment business, considering that COVID has impacted my dye sublimation business? Is anybody into DTG here? Have you looked at this stuff? You know, t-shirts and tote bags and things?
I'm happy to take that one offline because I don't think it'd be good to be product specific at this time.
Okay.
But if you'd like to refer that, I can do it.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, well, I think we're pretty well up to time now. So thanks everybody for that. We've heard some quite diverse responses, covered a lot of topics, social media, Brexit, of course, augmented reality, buying new kit, looking for new markets, finding new applications, creativity and communication really seem to be the two themes that come out very strongly. Keep on talking to each other, keep on talking to your clients, keep on talking to anybody who will listen, I think. So I hope we've given you some food for thought this afternoon. If you joined us late or would just like to review what was said, we are going to put the recording of the entire panel discussion on our website at digitalprintermag.co.uk. That will go up at some point in the next few days and will stay there for some time. If you think you've done something interesting, clever, unusual, or just plain successful, we are planning to keep the digital reset idea alive, both on the website and in the pages of the magazine. So, you know, if you've done something cool you'd like to tell us about, then please do that. So I'd just like to thank our panel again for their time and input. I hope they found it as interesting and enjoyable as I did. I would like to thank all our sponsors once again for making this possible and say that the exhibition stands are still open to visit. You know, perhaps some of the more specific producty questions could be directed there. And beyond that, there's a one-to-one networking opportunity as well. And thank you all for attending. That was Digital Reset 2020, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.